Hello, so welcome to another reading vlog. This week I've got a couple of sci-fi books that I'm hoping to pick up and I'm super excited about. So firstly we have Ancillary Mercy by Leckie. So this is the third and final book kind of in the Imperial Raj trilogy. So I guess this is the last book in the trilogy, but I do also have another book. Oh, where is that? In this one. I'm about to film a video where I was going to talk about one of the books on my TBR. So I have this other book which is like a standalone in the same world but not technically part of the trilogy. And then there's also I think like another one. Is it a short story anthology? I'm not sure. But firstly I'm going to read Ancillary Mercy. So Ancillary Justice was the first book. This is about this person who is actually a spaceship, or they were a spaceship. So in the first book we're kind of getting two timelines. One where they are this AI spaceship who also inhabits the bodies of multiple people, and they're kind of part of this big empire that's colonizing the universe. And the first book kind of focuses on this particular planet where things went badly. And then we're also getting the future timeline, 2,000 years in the future, where our spaceship is now only one body and they're basically out for revenge based on what happened in the original timeline. Things continued in the second book. The second book was actually a lot less intense. Well, not really less intense, but kind of like a little bit calmer, kind of. So I don't really know what this third book is going to be about. Actually, maybe I have some ideas, but I guess I will start this and see. It's only just over 300 pages, so hopefully we should easily be able to get through this during the week. And I gave the first two books in the series like 5 stars, so definitely expecting to love this. Then as well, another sci-fi that I'm hoping to love is The Trials of Koli by M.I. Carey. So this is the second book in the Rampart trilogy. Last month I read the first book, The Book of Koli. So this is about this world where it's like a post-apocalyptic world. The trees have now kind of come more alive, and if you go out in them, perhaps they will eat you. If you build a house out of one that isn't properly dead, perhaps it will eat you. So as a result, humans are kind of living in these small isolated villages, and they do still have some pieces of technology around. They don't really understand a lot of this technology though, and in the village that Koli has been raised, the idea is that technology will only wake for certain people, and so when you are like 16 or something, they test you to see if the technology will wake for you, and if it does, then you'll join this particular family and have like a lot of political power in the village. And so the story is really Koli's experience with the technology of the world and kind of like slowly learning more about the world. So in the second book, basically Koli is now with some other people and he's traveling to London already. I know he's got a completely wrong idea of what London is. He said that he knew it was so big that the sun could be setting on one side while it was rising on the other. Okay. So just throughout this book, I really love the misunderstandings of the past and of technology. There is also this particular character that I never want to say anything about, but I love her, and already just the little bits we've got of her. So I have started this audiobook already, but I've only listened to like, I don't know, maybe not even an hour yet. I've listened to 12 minutes so far, and it is I've listened to 50 minutes so far, and it's a 15-hour audiobook. I don't know. Audible always does that thing where when you go into it, it applies the speed to all the values and then nothing makes sense anymore. Oh, and I think he's also like the times on either side are to do with the chapter, not the book. Anyway, I am listening to this on 2.25 speed. I often say if I go over 2 it's because I'm not enjoying a book, but actually with the Koli books I just feel like they're quite slow, so I'm pushing the audiobook up a little bit for that reason. As well, because I only have this physically to read, in the evening I'm going to have some ebook things to read. I actually have a bunch of short stories that I'm going to try and read, and maybe I'll actually try and continue Witch Hat Atelier because I was meaning to do that this month and I have as yet not done it at all. But we'll see in the evenings how I can get on with a bunch of like smaller, shorter things that I have floating around. Oh, I do actually have another couple of audiobooks floating around. I've just remembered I'm possibly going to read like a million things this week. Is that going to be confusing? Maybe. I also have The Birds and Other Stories by Daphne du Maurier. I've actually already listened to The Birds, but it has some other short stories in the audiobook as well. So I'll read those since I have the audiobook. And I also have the audiobook for Januaries by Olivie Blake, which is like a bunch of short stories by her. So I think what I'm going to do is every time I go for a run, listen to one story from The Birds and Other Stories. I don't think there's too many in that one. And then also listen to one story in Januaries and then continue the Trials of Koli, which maybe means I won't finish the Trials of Koli this week, but I guess we'll just see what happens. Okay, so we are at the part of my roots growing out where no matter what I do, I'm unhappy with my hair. I really need to do something about it. Anyway, I wanted to update you on my reading, and I'm reading so many things, I feel like I'm going to forget to tell you about something. So I've actually got my story graph in front of me to like just go through it systematically. Let's start with the physical book that I'm reading. So Ancillary Mercy. I even remembered to call it the right thing. So this, I am not very far in. I think, oh, I'm like halfway. I didn't even make it to the end of the chapter last night. I'm halfway through chapter 4. So not very far in. And it's not because I'm not liking it, but I feel like it's a little bit mentally challenging for me right at the moment, but not enough for me to put it down. I'm just working my way into it slowly. There's a lot of like politics and kind of cultural nuance going on in this world, and so far like the first few chapters have really just been a lot of different conversations, and there's a lot of like underlying messages in those conversations. Like the things that are being said are not what the book is really focused on. The book is really focused on what is being meant by the things that are being said. Anyway, right at the bit where I'm up to now though, we have some aliens arriving, and I've been waiting for more of these aliens this whole series. So basically, I think I talked about before, this main character that we're following used to be a spaceship in this big empire that's like colonizing the universe. They're still colonizing the universe. However, they have come up against these other aliens that are like far superior in terms of technology and skill, but also are very different from humanity. And we did in the last book interact with one of them, and I love that bit. So I'm super excited that they're about to be re-entering the story. So I will be continuing this, but I don't know how fast I'm going to get through it. Then as well, oh, I should say I did actually finish something. So my plan was like, since I only had this physically, to try and read like ebook things late at night. But actually, I've still been reading this in bed, and then every time I turn off the light, I just fall asleep instead of reading ebooks. But I did, I think the night before last, managed to finish off volume 3 of Witch Hat Atelier. So this is like a manga series about these cute little witches learning magic, but there is kind of a darker story going on around that is very slowly revealing itself. A little bit too slowly for me, but it's still cute and fun. I did like in volume 3, there's also a character who is involved in magic, like this young boy who would like to be able to do magic, but he has kind of a vision problem. They call it silver wash. I think it's kind of like color blindness, but you see everything with like a silver wash over it. And because the magic in this world is all about drawing, and apparently drawing with different colors, but I mean the manga's not in color, so I don't know. I feel like he should just be able to do magic anyway, but apparently he's not allowed. So I kind of like the introduction of that character, but I think I still have kind of the critique that I have with all of these so far, is that I just want more to be happening. Probably I just need to be reading more volumes, because they're pretty quick to get through. So I will try to get to more this week, but there's still all those other short stories I wanted to pick up, so we'll see. Then as well, we've got audiobooks. So I did go for a run yesterday, actually. I didn't update you yesterday. So I did listen to another short story from The Birds and Other Stories, and actually it was the longest story in that audiobook, so it took most of my run, which was a little bit frustrating because I wanted to get to my actual novel and I ran out of time. But anyway, the story was called Monte Verita. Is that right? Should I check it? Let's check it. Monte Verita. Anyway, it is a story about this guy, and he has this friend from college. It's kind of like the early 1900s. He has this friend from college who has met this woman. They're going to get married, and he meets this woman, and these two guys are really into like mountain climbing, and the woman's like, oh, I've never climbed a mountain before, and they're like, well, of course you have to, and she's a little bit strange about it. And then some strange things happen. Actually, the very start of the book starts out kind of at the end of this guy's life, and he's talking about how everyone disappeared from this mountain. Like there was some kind of disaster on the mountain, and then he's going back and telling the story about things or something like that. I did quite like this. It had some interesting ideas. I will say, unlike The Birds, where I felt like it left a very open ending, this one almost gave you too much of an ending, and I wish it had left a little bit more mystery to things. But as far as short story anthologies goes, not often I don't like them, but I like both of these ones by Daphne du Maurier, and then also I'm continuing Januaries by Olivie Blake, and I'm liking that one too. So the second short story in Januaries was one, I don't actually know the name, and because BorrowBox doesn't have names on the chapters, who knows if I will ever know the names, because I'm bad at remembering things like that. Anyway, the second story was about kind of this thing you can sign up to where they will do some kind of analysis and discover how much money you're going to make in your life, and then basically you'll have 10 years, like until you're 30, to spend all that money and be free and like enjoy your youth. And then unfortunately you'll have to go to work and actually earn that money. But the idea is that way you get to use your money while you're young and like able enough to use it, rather than saving it for your retirement. But you do have to kind of pay it back while you're working, so you won't have it when you're old. But you'll be working till you die, probably. I don't know the details. The main thing, we're basically following this young guy who's kind of a bit of a loser, it seems like. And I won't tell you how much money he gets, but he's kind of freaked out by it and really struggles to make any kind of decision about what he wants to do with the money that he's gotten. And I just quite enjoyed following along with his story. Although I will say my absolutely favourite part of that story was the last line. And this is another example of why having the audiobook for this and not the physical book is annoying, because I can't just like highlight the last line. I've only got it in audiobook form. So I don't know if this short story anthology keeps going as well as it has been. I might actually consider buying it, but we'll see. I'm only 2 stories in, and there's quite a lot. So then, as well, I did continue the Trials of Koli. I'm not actually very far through it because I spent too much time listening to short stories and not listening to that. But we did get to another perspective. So I kind of just assumed this book was going to be all Koli's perspective again, but we've now gotten the perspective of another character that we had met in the previous book, and it's kind of jumped back to their story, kind of alongside what happened to Koli in the first book, and I'm very excited to get their story, because Koli was kind of just in this point where he's traveling, and it was a little bit boring, and I was like, not sure about this start to the story. But now getting this other perspective has made me quite excited again. It'll be interesting to see the perspective of this new character, of the technology in the world that none of them really understand. Is that everything I've been reading? Do you know it's not? I also did start the other day What White People Can Do Next by Emma Dabiri. So this is a story basically about what white people can do next. And a story. It's not a story, it's a nonfiction. So I recently had a bunch of people talk about this, so I assumed it was a new release, but it's actually not. It's from 2021. And it's quite nice because it's a non-American perspective of race, and I'm quite liking it. I'm only, again, a very short amount into it, but it's also only a 3-hour audiobook, so I'm expecting to be able to get through it pretty quickly. Although, I mean, the hard thing with any of these kind of books is not just to get through it, but to actually do something with what you learn from it. I'm 30% of the way through it, so I'll see if on my next run I can pick up a little bit of that. But it's like, if I pick up a little bit of that, a little bit of The Birds and the other stories in that, a little bit of Januaries, when am I actually getting to the Trials of Koli, which is the one I'm the most excited for? Somehow I'm reading way too many things. And I'm also getting through this really slowly. It doesn't really matter. It's not a race. That's what I need to remind myself. So you probably can't even see me in the shade of my hat, but I really need it because it's so sunny today that I thought I would come down here by the side of the river to film a little bit just because it's a nice sunny day. I just been for a run though, so I'm probably all shiny is what I am. So before I update you on my reading, the other good news that I have is that I was going to say I've sold my house. My house sale has gone unconditional, so theoretically that means I've sold my house. There's still like a very small chance that something could go wrong, but probably at this point I've sold my house, so I can finally like just be done with all that stress and finally have money again. I mean, most of the money from my house sale has places to go already, but I will still have a little bit for like buying things I want again and like to do up my library and buy some books, buy some stuff. There's a plane going overhead. Anyway, the main thing I'm just happy about is not to have to deal with that stress anymore, although I still have to do one annoying lawyer phone call, and hopefully that will be the only stressful thing left, hopefully. Anyway, I'm super excited about that, super happy, and just kind of get on with life once that's all done, hopefully. But let me update you with my reading. I feel like this is going to be fairly negative though, because during my run, I listened to a couple of short stories and neither of them were really my favorite. Firstly was The Apple Tree by Daphne du Maurier, and it was kind of about this couple. At first it seems like the woman is just like determined to be miserable, but slowly you learn that it's probably because the husband was an asshole, and he becomes really fixated on this apple tree after she dies, thinking that it's like representative of her, and that kind of goes on and on and on and doesn't really go anywhere. So I just don't really like reading about toxic relationships, and I didn't feel like the story had much deeper meaning. Then as well, the Olivie Blake short story I listened to was one kind of about this girl involved with a werewolf and a witch, and I guess again toxic relationships, blah blah blah, a little bit trying to be about female empowerment, but I don't know, it wasn't the kind of story I like at all. So yeah, not so great this run. I have just gone back to the Trials of Koli, and I'm a bit sad because we're back to Koli's perspective instead of the other perspective, which I was enjoying more. So hopefully something interesting will happen in Koli's perspective while I walk home, because otherwise I'm just going to be hanging out for the other perspective the whole time. What else have I been reading? Oh, so last night I was reading Ancillary Mercy. I don't know why I'm reading so many things at the moment. Ancillary Mercy, I'm up to 100 pages in now, and every time I feel like, oh, it's finally going to get going, it gets stuck up again in like all these interpersonal conflicts, and there's a bunch of like cultural and political stuff, but it's just very scattered. To me, it feels like just a stressful workday. I think I said about some of the previous books in the series that it was a little bit like someone just being really great at their job, because our main character was kind of just going into these situations and being badass. But at this point, I feel like they're being a little bit passive and just letting things happen. And there's so many different things happening that it just feels like more like a bad day at work rather than like the satisfaction of things going really well. So 100 pages in, which I think is a third of the way through this book. So I'm really hoping it will pick up soon. And the one other thing I've been reading, is there just one other thing? Who knows? I also did last night start the short story Invisible City by A.C. Buchanan. So this is a New Zealand author. I've read this short story before. To be honest, I thought I remembered that it was only like a few pages long, and then I only got a little bit into it because it turns out it's like way longer than that. So I don't know. I totally misremembered it, I guess. So, and I don't even know what it's about yet. Kind of this old man with memories of this old city that he had some traumatic experience in, but maybe he's trying to remember it. I'm not really sure. Can you hear all those bikes going past on that path over there? It's very noisy. Anyway, I actually feel like I'm going to get sunburned if I keep sitting here, so I best go home. Hopefully Koli will do something interesting on the way, but I guess we'll see. So before I give you a reading update, I actually want to tell you I bought a gift card the other day through this reward program, so like a free $100 gift card, and I had it on my desk, and then we were going to go out for a walk, and I thought to myself, don't leave it on the desk because someone's going to break in and steal it. I don't know what I was thinking. And my memory is that what I decided to do was put it in the front cover of a book that was on my desk, because I had stacks of books on my desk, as I often do. I think that's what I did. Maybe I did something else. I kind of remember doing something and thinking to myself, I'm going to forget that I did this and I'm going to lose it. And the thing is, it's taken me several days to realize that I have misplaced it. And since then, I've put books away that were on my desk and got other books out. So that this pile is not the pile that was there at that point. And I have gone through all the books on my shelf that I think were there. I can't find it. It's not in the front of a book. Maybe I put it somewhere else. I honestly don't know. I'm hoping at some point I'm going to be reading a book and we're going to find a magical $100 gift voucher as a reward, I guess. Otherwise, probably once I get to buying more bookshelves, I will take all these books off the bookshelf as part of setting up the new ones, and then maybe I'll find it then. Who knows? Anyway, let's look forward to a future reading discovery. So let me tell you about my reading. Ancillary Mercy. I did actually get a decent amount through this yesterday. So I'm now nearly at page 200. So that's pretty decent progress. And I will say there was kind of a section in there where a lot was happening. It was both like kind of a big action scene as well as a quite emotional scene. I definitely still feel there's a fair amount of stuff going on in here which feels like a distraction. But at the same time, like I can kind of see what it's trying to do by including that in the story. Because a lot of the characters in here are somewhat artificial intelligence or some kind of other special thing going on. So like showing their humanity and the way that they deal with relationships is quite an important part of the book. And just the way that people interact, like so much of this is about culture. So like all those relationships are important to the message, but it's just so scattered. Anyway, we did have a bit where it was all very focused and I was really loving that bit. And as well, we had a fair amount of that with these aliens, or this one particular alien, and every time it's kind of ridiculous, kind of like stupid humor, but at the same time it's not stupid. I don't know. I could definitely see it going either way, and part of me feels like, am I being a hypocrite? Because lately that kind of humor with like Brandon Sanderson has been really annoying me, but I feel like this is cleverer and like more well fit into the story. Anyway, every time we get a little bit of that alien, I'm just like laughing and smiling and having a great time, even though the rest of the story is quite dark and emotional. So it's kind of a nice balance going on there. Like the funny bits never take away from the emotion. It's more that like when the emotion is finished, you'll get something to kind of like brighten the mood. So I think I've got about 120-ish pages to go. 130 maybe. As always, delusional me is thinking maybe I could finish that tonight, but probably not. Maybe today and tomorrow, maybe. We'll see. The only other thing I think I read since I last talked to you is I was listening to the Trials of Koli on my way home from my run yesterday, and I don't think I got that far, but it was Koli's perspective and there were some interesting things happening with Koli, and I still think I'm preferring the other perspective at the moment, but I'm not as like bored with Koli's perspective as I was before. I definitely still wish that he was making a bit more progress towards his goals, not just traveling all the time. And also, Koli is sometimes such an idiot. That's a little bit frustrating, actually. Anyway, I'm actually thinking about maybe on my next run, I will put the short stories aside just so that I can make some more progress with Koli, because it's frustrating me that I'm not getting as far with that as I would like to be. Oh, actually, also, I have this. This is oh, you probably can't see it because it's probably too bright, but this is a bookmark that I found in one of the books that I was going through looking for my gift card. It's just a little bit of paper someone's written bookmark on, but I don't know where it's come from, but I quite like it. Hello. So I have reblued my hair and randomly decided to part it on the other side, which maybe I'll regret. We'll see. But nice to have reblued hair. As well, I did finish Ancillary Mercy. I am a little bit conflicted about this. There were some parts where I was completely absorbed and I loved it. And a few bits were like really great ideas. Like I've tabbed a few things in here, but I feel like the first books in the series are up there, but in the first book I tabbed heaps because there was so much that was like blowing my mind and so many great lines and so many great ideas. The next book I tabbed a little bit less, but I still really enjoyed the book. This one, as I said, there were some really great bits. And as well, we have these aliens kind of introduced, and the bits we got of that alien I really enjoyed, although they are somewhat like comical and ridiculous, and I can see that, like, I feel like maybe I'm being a bit hypocritical. Did I say this in my last update? Maybe. I just feel like it's a bit silly, but something about it I just really enjoy. Like, I think I just really love the idea of aliens being so non-human and having such a different perspective of things, even when it is presented in a fairly ridiculous way. But at the same time, like, these aliens are incredibly dangerous and everyone around them knows that. What I was also thinking about this book, though, is in a lot of ways it's kind of like slice of life. It's just that the life that you're getting a slice of is one of this ship's captain that used to be a spaceship themselves, and they're kind of in the middle of this big civil war. So like you've got that going on, but also they're just dealing with like a lot of day-to-day stuff at the same time as, like, you know, battles to the death and mortal injuries. I don't know. I feel like when I think about this book, I do like it, but just the way that it was presented and compared to the earlier books in the series, I don't think it was as good. And I think it's another one where I'm kind of frustrated because I think it could have been amazing, but it just didn't quite do everything it could have. I think I'm still giving this 4 stars, but that's probably rounded up from like 3.5. I'm still glad I read it, and I will continue. I have, every time I try and find where they are, and I don't know. I actually think it's right up on the top shelf. I am now rethinking having shelves this high, because whenever there's books on the top shelf, I'm like, well, I can't reach that. And so then I don't get those books down. Anyway, I will continue with like the book I have that's a spin-off from the series, and then I think there's another one as well, or is it short stories? I'm not sure, but there are a couple more things in this world that I will definitely be reading because I'm interested in the world. I just wish that this could have been as good as the first 2 books, but not quite. As well, I have been listening to the Trials of Koli, and I'm definitely getting more into it. I do think we're not getting as much discovery as there was in the first book. Like in the first book, it takes a little while to get going, actually, the first book. But still, once it does get going, you're discovering a lot about the world. And I definitely don't think Koli has discovered as much about the world in the second book. And the other character that we're getting, they are discovering a lot, but a lot of it is the stuff that Koli already knows. And it definitely is interesting seeing them discover it in a different way and having a different perspective of things, and like seeing the different way that they're navigating the same kind of discovery. And I'm not actually sure. I feel like within this book, we're not going to have those 2 perspectives come together, because I've only got like an hour and a half left of the audiobook and I can't see how it could bring them together. But maybe the third book, everything will come back together. Anyway, we're also getting like a fair amount of action, and now that I'm right near the end, there's a few things kind of being set up that I'm waiting, like what is going to happen here. I know something bad's going to happen. I'm just kind of waiting for it to drop. So I'm going to go for a run tomorrow morning probably and finish that off then. So I'll probably finish this vlog off. Once I finish that off, I can tell you my thoughts about that. And then, like, I'm still reading so many other things. I guess I'm going to try and finish them off next week before the end of the month if I can. I did actually last night as well read Invisible City by A.C. Buchanan. So it was actually kind of short. I feel like my Kindle was lying to me about how long it was going to take me to get through it, but it was definitely longer than I remembered it being. So still pretty short, but longer than I remembered. And it's also a really hard short story to talk about because it takes you a while to really figure out what's going on, and that's kind of the point of it. But it's a short story about this man who has like kind of a traumatic past related to this other city that he used to live in, and I guess the way that he's dealing with the memories of that past when nobody else really remembers them. And there's a little bit of a sci-fi twist to it that I really enjoyed. It's also quite emotional. Like, for a short story, I think it packs quite a punch. I enjoyed it a lot. And other than that, like, maybe I'll read another short story tonight. I guess we'll see. But tomorrow, I think on my run, at least in the first half of it, I'm going to focus on finishing the Trials of Koli, because I really want to know how it's going to end. Okay, so I have finished the Trials of Koli on my run this morning, and I really liked it. I definitely think this has set things up for a really interesting last book. As I expected, our two perspective characters didn't come together, but they are both in very interesting positions. And definitely everything that happened at the end of both their perspectives did ramp things up. It was a little bit weird because one perspective kind of ended, and then we got the end of the other perspective, and like both perspectives were kind of getting quite decent chunks. So even though the new perspective had quite a big explosive ending, it didn't really happen at the end of the book, which is a little bit weird, but it was very exciting. And then we went back to Koli, and he also had some intense experiences. I definitely still think with this book, even though we did get some cool tech moments, there's one particular tech element that I wish we'd gotten more of, because I know with the first book it was making me laugh like all the time, and I didn't really get like that sense of humor in the second book. Okay, my battery died, and I honestly think this battery is going to last for like 2 seconds, so let's see how we go. Oh no, and I don't even remember what I was saying. Oh, I think what I was going to say is the two perspectives I think make really clear, because the new perspective is a character that's fairly smart. It really makes it more obvious that Koli's a bit of an idiot. He makes some kind of dumb decisions. A lot of the time in this book he's really following along with the other characters that he's with, and luckily they are all like badass women, so he's okay. But he's an idiot. He's a lovable idiot, but he's definitely an idiot. But yeah, as I said, super excited for the last book in that series when I get to it, which I think is going to be sometime next month. It won't be too long. I do like to take a little bit of a break between books and series, but I try to read them kind of like one a month, and I feel like it works pretty well for me. Anyway, the other thing I did also read last night is Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin. So this is like a 40-page short story. The setup is that we're getting just the voice inside the head of this composite creature. In the beginning, you're not really clear what it is, and it's being sent to this planet where these people used to live, but the planet became uninhabitable because of climate change and pollution and all that stuff that we are currently suffering with. But they've been sent back to try and gather something that's needed from this planet. And they have like this AI voice or something inside their head that's kind of like the voices of the founders who originally escaped this dead planet. And when they go back to the planet, they discover that it's not exactly what they were expecting. So it's written kind of weird in that you're only getting the voice inside his head, and when he's talking to people you won't get to hear what he said, and any questions he asks the voice inside his head, you don't get to hear those questions, you just get to hear their responses. I think as well, so this is quite a political story, and when I read a lot of the reviews online, I was shocked to see how many people were saying that they don't read sci-fi for politics. And I do agree that the short story was definitely quite heavy-handed in the way it was dealing with things. But also, the whole point of science fiction is to like explore better ways of living or like worse ways of living, things we want to avoid. And if that isn't what politics is about, then I don't get it. Anyway, yeah, I was just really surprised how many people think they're not reading sci-fi for politics. Because I think for a short story, this had a lot of really great ideas in it. Maybe it could be considered a little bit too divisive, but I think if you really look at what it's saying, it's actually saying the opposite of that. Did I read anything else? Oh, I also did read another short story in the Birds and Other Stories, and it was called something about a photographer, The Little Photographer. I didn't really like it. It was a story about this really rich woman on holiday, and she's so bored, and I have zero empathy for people who are very rich and very bored. Like, I think you could solve your problem pretty easily. Also, she decides to have this affair, kind of, and I don't know. In the end, she kind of gets what she deserves, which was satisfying, but I had to listen to like an hour of her being just a really tedious person, and I did not enjoy it. And like, you're not meant to feel empathy for her. You're meant to think that she's annoying and then enjoy, I think, what happens at the end. But I just didn't enjoy the listening experience at all. And I've only got a couple more short stories in that anthology now, so maybe I'll be able to finish them off before the end of the month. There's only a couple more days, so we'll see. I'm pretty sure that's all I've read. So since I finished off Ancillary Mercy and the Trials of Koli and some short stories and other things, I think we're going to end this vlog here, and next week I'll try and read less things, but I think I'm going to be unsuccessful with that. So let me know if you have read any of the things that I read in this video, because I would love to chat with you about them down in the comments. Or let me know if you've been reading anything great lately. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.